guys, my name's Abby, and if you're watching this, then you have someone who's going into boot camp or is currently in boot camp. So my husband personally is in the Marine Corps, and he's already in the fleet, so we've already been through all of that. But during that time that he was in boot camp, I was searching for videos and stuff of people going through the same thing, and I couldn't find a lot, but I figured now that everything's settled down, maybe if someone else is out there and they just happen to come across this, they might be helped out. So boot camps for every branch is different. The duration is different. The rules are different. But personally, the Marine Corps is 13 weeks long. No phone calls, just letters only. So it's about one of the longest things anyone could go through. So just a little bit of a background about me and my husband Cole. We have been together for 4 years, since we were 15. I know we're almost 20, so we're still really young, but it's okay. So I had always known he wanted to join the Marine Corps, so that was nothing new to me. We have always prepared, like he was training with his recruiter for a year before he left for boot camp, and he also interned with his recruit for school. And Cole had graduated high school early in January and had left in March for boot camp. So he was coming, his graduation was in June. And so we live in North Carolina, so we live on the East Coast, which is on, like, I guess, I don't know, geography. It's on the East Coast. East of the Mississippi River, and on that you go to Paris Island. On the other side you go to San Diego. Sorry, my dog is squeaking his toy. So Cole went to Paris Island, and it was one of the hardest things that I've had to do personally. So he left in March 13th, he left for boot camp, and saying goodbye at the MEP station was really hard, because, you know, his whole family was there, and you only get like 2 minutes to say goodbye, but it's a lie, you only get like 30 seconds. So it was really emotional. I did not cry in front of him, which was great. I'm a crybaby, but I didn't cry till after we got out of the building, because I didn't want him to see that, because that's the last time you're gonna see them for 3 months. So the first, I'm all over the place, but the worst thing about that is I had to work at 6 a.m. the next morning, and the MEP station that was closest to where we were from was Charlotte, North Carolina, and that was like an hour away that's with like good traffic. So we had to drive all the way back, and I had to go to work at 6 a.m. the next morning. I was exhausted, I was emotional, my eyes were swollen. It was not fun. So, but I was very, very lucky to have that job, because that was a huge distraction while he was gone. But the first 2 weeks of boot camp are going to be the hardest ones, and the last 2 weeks. I'm saying the first 2 weeks and the last 2 weeks are going to be the hardest. Those are going to be the slowest going by. Those are going to be like the most emotional. So I was going through a lot of family stuff. So I was currently living with his family, and his family, they had a job where they had to travel a bunch, so I was alone a lot. But again, I was working, and at that time I was only working part-time, so it was kind of hard. It was and my best friend was, again, like going through her last couple months of high school, so she was really busy, and she was also working, so it was really hard to manage those feelings by myself. It was awful. And I remember there was a voicemail that Cole had left me where he told me that he loved me and he misses me. It was a different thing, and I would just listen to that over and over and over again. So also, if you are in contact with his recruiter, they will send you his address within a week of him leaving. And so we got his address. He left on a Monday, and we got his address the following Thursday. And so I immediately started sending letters. Well, see, something that helped me was I started writing the day he left. I wrote kind of like to keep him up. It was kind of like a diary type thing where I was just trying to keep him up on stuff that had happened and stuff like that. So at the same time, we were also planning our wedding. And, well, I was planning our wedding. So that was also something I would write to him, like, hey, I found a dress, or hey, I found bridesmaids' dresses, or stuff like this. So I would just write to him stuff, just normal. And the day we got our address, I just put it in one envelope and I sent it. And I would send him a letter every single day. I would write it that night and send it in the morning when I left for work, because I worked really, really early. And so that was just kind of, I know that's like a little excessive, but I just wanted him to know that I was thinking about him, and for him to have something to read when it came to mail call every day or every other day. So the first 2 weeks went by and I started kind of getting into a routine, and again I got promoted to a shift manager and I started working full-time, and you know, it was really, really nice. And again, we were planning our wedding. So something that really helped me also for it to fly by is count weeks. Don't count days, count weeks. So I would count Sunday to Sunday. So I would have like 12 Sundays left or 11 Sundays left. And that really, really helped. Again, if you happen to go to your recruiter's office before they leave, the Sunday before they leave to go to MEPS, they will give you a schedule, sort of like a schedule that has the days on it, and also kind of like a summary of what they would be doing that day. That was also helpful to just cross out the days and read, and be like, well, that might I cannot speak. That might be what Cole is doing today. So also, there's also multiple Facebook pages and I keep burping, support groups and Instagrams. So something to, if your recruit is at Paris Island, something to look for is when you know their company name and their platoon number, yes. If you go to Paris Island on Facebook, Paris Island Facebook, they post videos of different companies and different platoons doing different things. So that's also really nice to watch. And they post pictures and stuff like that. So there's also multiple forums on social media to look at and to see, to maybe find a picture of your recruit or see videos of what his company's doing, and you just know he's in there. So also something to keep in mind is you might not get as much letters as you're giving. So it took me like 3 weeks to get a letter because he was super busy and he wanted to take his time to write me a letter. And I didn't get a lot of letters. I got maybe 12. But in his defense, he was super busy and super tired because, again, they only get like an hour or 2 hours. I can't not remember. It's been a very long time. Not that long, but it's been a while. That they get free time. And their free time is not really free time. It's more of them cleaning their bunks and organizing their shoe lockers or foot lockers and getting their camis and uniforms ready for the next day. So they don't have a lot of time, and they're reading letters that they're receiving, and they're trying to write to so many people, their parents, their other family members, their friends. Like, they don't have a lot of time. So don't be like butthurt or offended if you don't get a lot of letters, because I promise you they are trying. They're just really tired. And so I was very lucky to get as much letters as I did. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but he really did try to write me, and I was grateful for every single letter. I cried at every single one also, but I was actually very lucky to hear his voice on Mother's Day because, again, like, I was living with his parents and we were preparing for the wedding, and we happened to be outside, and his mom was across the yard. Her phone rang, and so I answered it, and it happened to be Cole, and he couldn't talk for very long because we originally called to talk to his mom, and I knew that. So I only heard hey, and I was like, yeah, and he couldn't say I love you back. That was rough. But he told me later on that he cried, so that's sad. But you don't, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm all over the place, but it was hard. But once time passed, it was like, okay, I'm one day closer to it being over, or I'm 1 week closer to it being over. And again, we were very lucky because after we finished the Crucible, he got Liberty that Sunday. It was the Sunday before we left, because we were going to see him that following Friday. And he got Liberty, and which is free time, which is them basically being off work. And he called. Sorry, there's people outside and they're scared me. So he called, and it was really nice. And we talked. It was only like 20-minute intervals, so it was about 40 minutes. And again, like his whole family was there because we were preparing for the wedding, and our wedding was literally in 2 weeks. So I only got talked to him for a couple minutes, but it was really nice, and I was very lucky I came home from work at that time. And yeah, so we left for Paris Island, which is 6 hours away from where we lived at the time, on a this is distracting. We left on a Tuesday because we had a tour scheduled for Wednesday of Paris Island. You can tour Paris Island, and it's really nice to see where your recruit has been and what they've been doing, sorta. And they have briefs which tell you what to expect. And you also, if you're lucky, get to see them practice graduation. They can't look at you, they can't talk to you, they can't even like wave at you. They have to basically ignore you, but you can see them, and that's exciting. So the next day was family day, and something that I would advise is getting up at 5 a.m. And I know that seems a little bit excessive because it'll say like 6 or 7, but they have the motivation run that day and you want to see them run. But something like that, you want to get in line at the weather building. That's all I remember it's called. You want to get in line because you have to go through security, and then you have to get a seat. And for us, we were very lucky to be in line because his papa was older. Sorry, I don't know what they're doing. He's like barefoot outside. Oh, fighting in the yard. Sorry. Kind of exciting that they just fight in the yard. Okay, anyway, sorry. Sorry. I'm really bad at this. Okay, so I would suggest getting in line really early because for us, it was really good because we got sort of like a front row seat, but not, like there are a bunch of kind of like bleachers at school. It's kind of like that, and you basically sit there for like 2 hours and wait. But it's important because there's so many other people trying to get in there, and especially if you have like older family members with you, it's important to do that because his papa is in his 90s and he can't really walk very well. So it was important that we kind of did that. And so we sat there and we waited and we waited and we waited, and it felt like an eternity. And they played videos and everything. But again, I suggest getting there early because you have to go through security. You have to, there's a bunch of people there, so you have to get parking. You have to, this is crazy. It's kind of like going to a concert, sorta. I don't know. The earlier you get there, the better. So we sat there for hours and hours, and finally they came in and they kind of did like a ceremony where they do awards and stuff. I can't really remember. And what they do is they release their recruits. And something I suggest is people are like running everywhere and everywhere. When they do that, just stay where you're at. Stay where you're at for a minute and let everything calm down and then go. And so what we did was it was kind of like a delayed thing. He didn't hug anyone at first. He was like, okay, let's go outside. And then he hugged people, and he didn't want to hug people for long because his drill instructor said don't be hugging up on people very long. There are rules on a military base when they're in uniform. You can't hold their hand, you can pet them maybe, but not too much. You can't be laying up on them. And them personally being recruits, still they hadn't graduated. You can only hold their, I believe, the right hand that's loose. I can't, I'm so sorry. I'm going to offend. But you have to hold the left hand. But anyway, it'll be magical and you get 10 days leave. So this is all over the place and long, and I'm sorry. I tried my best. But this is kind of like a summary. So I will make a next one on what to expect after. And yeah, forgive me. I'm a mess.